right, hey guys, good morning. We're going to be looking at chapter 19, lesson 4. So, you just recently took chapter 19, Medieval Europe, test on lessons 1 through 3. Now, what we're going to be looking at is lessons 4 and 5. So, I figured we should break it down into two so that way you could maybe do a little bit better on the test. It would be a lot of material had we chose to do all of it in one uh, at one time. So that's why I broke it down. So you will be taking a test on lessons 4 and 5 um, in the next few days. So let's look at this. Lesson 4, and we're going to be looking at the culture and the church. So you may want to open up your textbooks so you can look at pictures. On page 564 is where lesson 4 starts. All right, so we're going to actually come back to these true and false statements at the end. So I want you to keep this in mind. Let's look at this here. It says European culture in the Middle Ages. By the 1100s, people in medieval Europe felt safer because of stronger governments. Trade, banking, and business grew. People valued religion. Church leaders, merchants, and nobles had cathedrals or large churches built. Cathedrals were built in two styles. Romanesque was a mix of Roman and Byzantine styles. These rectangular buildings had long, rounded ceilings and small windows. Gothic cathedrals, on the other hand, were tall, large stained glass windows that showed scenes from the Bible. Universities were created during the Middle Ages. Universities educated and trained scholars. University students studied for 4 to 6 years before taking an oral or spoken exam. So that's what oral means. It's actually them asking you questions and you repeating what the answer would be out loud and not actually writing the answers down. You guys take written exams, but you can take an oral exam. In some cases, you may have to in the future. Those who passed receive a degree. A student could continue school to earn a doctor's degree. This degree could be in law and medicine or theology, and theology is the study of religion and God. So let's look at the next paragraph. It says a new way of thinking was called scholasticism. It changed the study of theology. Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher or thinker, had used reason instead of faith to understand the meaning of life. This bothered some Christian thinkers. They wanted to show that ideas accepted by faith did not have to oppose ideas developed by reason. An Italian priest named Thomas Aquinas helped spread the ideas of scholasticism. Aquinas wrote Summa Theologica, a summary of what was known about theology. He also wrote about government and the concept of natural law, or laws that come from human nature. Aquinas claimed that natural law gave people certain rights that the government should not take away. Latin was the language of the church and of educated people. Throughout Europe, each region of Europe also had its own language. This everyday language was called vernacular. Over time, vernacular language became the language of Spanish, French, English, Italian, and German. During the 1100s, new literature was written using vernacular language. Educated people enjoyed vernacular writings, especially poetry told by troubadours. Troubadours were poets who sang love songs, especially about the love of knights for a lady. Another type of vernacular writing was the heroic epic. In epics, brave knights fight for kings and lords. The Song of Roland is an example of a heroic epic. So if you look actually on page 567, you can see a piece of the Song of Roland. It gives you an example. Let's look back here. What type of degree could a student in a medieval university earn to study music? So if you look here are the basic degrees. You could study grammar, logic, math, music, and public speaking. That would be under a basic degree. Right here is what you would put. All right. Doctor's degree, remember, in law, medicine, and theology is what you get your doctorate in. Underline the two styles of cathedrals built in medieval Europe. So it talks about it right here. There's Romanesque. That was a type of cathedral, and it was a mix of Roman and Byzantine styles. It was a long rectangular building with rounded ceilings and small windows. And then there was a Gothic cathedral, and those were tall buildings with large stained glass windows that showed scenes from the Bible. I'm more familiar with like a Gothic cathedral. All right, so let's look here. What is vernacular? So remember, vernacular is the everyday language that was spoken. So in the region of Europe. So that was vernacular language. And it says, give three examples of vernacular language. Well, here's more than three, but there's Spanish, French, English, Italian, and German. That would be considered vernacular language. And that's language used throughout Europe. Why is it important that literature was written in everyday language? Well, the reason why it was important is so that most people could understand and enjoy the works of literature. And that's why, where common people could understand it. All right, religion affected society. Beginning in the 1000s, a wave of religious feelings swept through Europe. As a result, new groups of priests, monks, and nuns were formed. These were called religious orders, and this is what they were: Cynicism, um, it's Franciscan Friars, and Dominicans. All right, so the Cistercian order was based on rural monasteries. Its members invented new ways of farming that helped grow more crops. They also helped the poor. Francis of Assisi started a new order called Schism. They preached Christianity in the towns. They also were known for their cheerfulness and love of nature. A Spanish monk named Dominique de Guzman started the Dominicans. Its main goal was to defend church teachings. The Catholic Church affected almost every part of people's lives. On Sundays and holy days, people went to Mass, which is the Catholic worship service. And some of you may go to a Catholic church and you may attend Mass. You may be a little bit more familiar with what Mass is. People prayed to saints to ask for help from God. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was the most honored saint. The Catholic Church used its power to try to stop heresy or religious beliefs that did not agree with church teachings. In 1233, the Pope created a special court to deal with heretics. It was called the Inquisition. Its job was to question heretics, or people who were accused of heresy. People who were found guilty could confess and ask for forgiveness. Those who refused to confess were punished. So, why were many new religious orders founded beginning in the 1000s? Well, that was because because of the wave of religious feelings that swept through Europe. All right, question number 6. Explain what is Mass. So, Mass is a worship service in a Catholic church. That's what the definition of it is. Underline the definition of heresy. All right, so a heresy is, let's see, religious beliefs that do not agree with church teachings. That's what heresies are. Question number 8. What happened to people who were found guilty of heresies? So they could confess and ask for forgiveness. If they did not confess, they were punished. That's what happened. All right, so here it says church steps for dealing with heretics. And number 1, send friars to preach to heretics. Put heretics on trial in Inquisition court. Tell convicted heretics to confess. Allow confessed heretics to beg for forgiveness and return to the church. Punish heretics who would not confess by casting them out of the church. Punishment can mean losing property, going to prison, or being executed. Many church leaders and church members also practiced anti-Semitism, or hatred of Jews. Many European Christians unfairly blamed Jews for problems in society, such as famine or economic decline. Christian mobs attacked or killed thousands of Jews. Many Jews had to wear special badges or clothing. In some places, they had to live in separate neighborhoods known as ghettos. Jews also could not own land or work at certain jobs. In the 1100s, Western European rulers began driving out their Jewish subjects. Many of these Jews went to countries in Eastern Europe. There, they formed thriving communities and were based on their religious traditions. Question number 9. List 3 examples of how European Christians mistreated Jews. Well, let's see right here. Christian mobs attacked them. They killed thousands of Jews. Many Jews had to wear special badges or clothing, and they also had to live in separate neighborhoods called ghettos. So that's more than 3 ways, but that's how they mistreated the Jews. Question number 10. Why did church officials set up Inquisition? It was set up as a special court to deal with heretics. And remember, heretics was the religious beliefs that did not agree with the church teachings. Okay, that's what heresies are. So, for lesson 4, I'm actually not making you write down these answers. So, as long as you listened and paid attention, if you wanted to take notes with that, that's fine. You could do that. And you're actually going to take these notes. So I'm going to actually post this in Google Classroom. And this is medieval life. It is a table about cathedrals, universities, theology, literature, and religious orders. And I do expect you to write down all the notes that I took as I read through this chapter. As I read through lesson 4. I want you to draw this exact same table, just like this. Label it cathedrals, universities, theology, literature, religious orders. And I want you to write down all the notes that I took in these, okay? And you can use these to study. But that is going to actually be your only assignment, is to write down this chart, okay? And you're going to send me a picture of it. So that's your assignment for lesson 4. Thanks, guys, for listening.